Hello, everybody in the Gutsy Women Collective. I hope you're all having a brilliant day, no matter what time of day it is. And I am here today with a very wonderful Tammy Scarlett. She is a life coach, she's a mother, she helps people with wellness and health. She's doing a phenomenal job, and she's started the Women's Wellness Network. Maybe was it a year ago now, Tammy? You started that? Yeah. So, and
Yes.
she's got a fantastic group and she's doing some wonderful work in there. So, I'd love you to welcome her into the Gutsy Women Collective today because we're going to have a wonderful conversation with Tammy and she's going to tell you all about what she does. Welcome, Tammy, today.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you for having me in Gutsy Woman Collective. I think that's amazing. I love the name
Thank
Gutsy Women because
you.
so many things for that. It's got that double thing to it. We're not just having our guts taken care of, we're gutsy.
Yes,
We're ready to
exactly.
go for it.
I know. And the thing is, when you have got illness, isn't it true that you need guts to get over it, especially if it's chronic pain and chronic illness? We need to have the guts to actually get through that and find different ways of eliminating, wouldn't you say?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. I think that it takes guts to, first of all, to want to heal, to get better. It takes guts to especially look at different ways and new ways, maybe ways that are outside of our box that we're normally used to, because that's usually where we find the best healing is something we haven't thought of or something we haven't tried before. But
Yes,
just saying, hey, this could be a thing, this might be interesting. And being curious about it, I think sometimes is just the best way to roll into a new situation, even if it has to do with, you know, getting better.
yes, definitely. So, Tammy, you've got a real story to tell about that as well, haven't you? Because you've been through some really difficult health challenges over the years. And no doubt you've got a story to tell of what led to that as well. So can you tell the ladies in here who you are, where you live, and a little bit about your story and what you do?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Steve. Well, first of all, I am Tammy Scarlett. I am Canadian. I currently am just a little bit outside of Toronto. And thankfully, I can see some of the grass now. The snow is melting away. So spring is coming. Oh, yes. And happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone out
Yes.
watching.
Yeah.
Um, Yes. So my story, I guess, is probably quite similar to so many women out there, having had, traumas and dramas and all sorts of things growing up and that kind of uh, life and not knowing how to handle it, not knowing how to deal with it, not knowing what things to do to improve my own well-being. Um, really just always focused on everybody else until, everything started to fall apart. I had my marriage was ending and I ended up with breast cancer. And just because of the nature of who I am and probably also the situation, I didn't really talk about it. I didn't tell anybody that I was going through either thing, to be honest. I didn't really talk about my marriage ending because I was hopeful that it could um, survive, that we could make it through somehow. And where I was living in the province of British Columbia in Canada, they have a rule when you want to get a divorce, you have to have um, a year before they grant it so that they can make sure that it's really what you want and that it's really, right for you, the both of you. So I went through that period of time, that year, just really trying to work on my marriage and work on myself and all that kind of thing. And it wasn't working. It was just a bad situation. And I ended up with breast cancer. And I think a lot of it, did have to do with, so many things that were going on internally, the chemistry, not eating properly, maybe at that time drinking too much wine, just not sleeping at all because I was so stressed out and feeling seriously like my body was in shock, like clinical shock, um, for a good portion of the time. And that takes a toll. And, then I ended up with breast cancer. So I think just that whole moment in time where I was just disconnected with myself and not living in my body. And then it was getting worse, of course, because you don't want to feel those things. You don't want to feel that pain and the difficulty of the situation. And at the time, my children were younger. They were, I guess, 14 and 15. And that's a, it's a hard enough time when you have teenagers, and then to throw in divorce and illness on top of that. And of course, I couldn't just get, I don't want to say regular breast cancer, but it was later stage and it was a rarer form. So just the whole stressful moments of life, I really could have used a lot more guidance and resources and things that could have helped me. But there just wasn't any available. There were very few, and the doctors always say, "Don't go Google stuff because you're going to find out misinformation and there's scary things out there and all that sort of thing." So I, pushed back, took a little step back from doing that. Uh, Only to discover, you still need help. You still need help, and you still need people to walk you along and guide you.
It's very difficult to do a journey like that by yourself. And I totally get it because I'm very much the same. I'm very much that kind of person. So I hear you 100%. And you touched on something really important is the stress and the anxiety and the things we hold in. You touched on kind of, it was like this contributed to that illness.
Oh, yeah.
Can can you tell the women who are in the group what you what that means to you? What did that look like for you at that time?
Sure. Yeah. I think that just the whole thing was just a perfect storm. Let's say, you've got the outer situation where I felt like I couldn't go to anybody, I couldn't trust anybody, I couldn't talk to anybody, which included my doctor. So just that whole, not knowing, being afraid, the chemistry that was going on inside my body was so many things, shame and guilt over the marriage ending, um, being afraid, not knowing what it was going to happen next, feeling like a failure for my, because I had children and now the family was going to be broken apart. Um, just that so many internal, um, those feelings, their chemistry inside of your body. So they're going to do something. They're making something happen within there. And I was very good at blocking those feelings, blocking those, the anxiety in the chest, blocking that feeling, the turmoil in the stomach, the knots, the heartburn, um, the irritable bowel at that time too, right? Just really, nothing was in cycle. Everything was out of harmony. Everything was um, not as it should be. And even when you start to take food in, because you have to, I wasn't interested in eating, to be honest. I wasn't interested in much of anything, but of course you have to eat. Um, and that was difficult. And even just realizing, the digestive processes and the things that happen, you take in this food, what does it feel like inside of you? Well, if your chemistry is totally mixed up, it's, most things are not going to balance. Most things are not going to feel good inside of your body. You got to get back to that set reset. And I didn't know about fasting and that kind of thing then. And, you just do your best. And if there's not enough knowledge, it's not going to make it better. You just keep doing your best, which is great. But that cycle, that spiral, just continues to get worse because you're not making it better. You need to have people to guide you. And that's one of the things I really realized going through all of that. Like I said, mostly on my own, which I don't recommend. Like, don't get a diagnosis and not tell anybody. That is the most crazy thing I think I ever did. And I've done a lot of crazy things, but that's one of those things you just think how simple it would be to share that news with somebody, or ask somebody to kind of be there for you. But when you're in those situations, it just isn't. Sometimes you just want to shut out the whole world and try and manage it by yourself. And well, I mean, I was trying to do that for quite a section of time, um, before I was diagnosed. And it's not the way to go. It's not helping anything. It's not healing anything. It's keeping it all stuck in there, and eventually it has to go somewhere. And for me, it turned into breast cancer. So
Wow. The thing is, it's kind of like as you were speaking, that phrase came up, you can't solve the problem in the same way that you created it. And that's the phrase that came up as you were speaking. So, Tammy, what was the pivotal moment for you then, once you worked all of that out, that it was a lot of stress and anxiety that contributed to that condition? What what was the pivotal moment for you that made you want to set up the Women's Wellness Network, for instance?
I think there was just a growing, you know, a growing thing that made that happen. Like first of all, you know, sitting in there, I was having to live with my going to be ex-husband while I was going through cancer, which I don't suggest either. That's not a fun situation to be in. And so number one, I don't recommend living with your partner when you're getting a divorce. Some people it could probably work for, but in a bad situation, it's not the best idea. So the first thing I realized was that every time he came in the door, there was this negative energy that came with him. And I thought, I can't do that. I can't feel that. And at that moment, I didn't know I had breast cancer. I started to realize this energy came with him. And, whether it was coming from him or if it was just something that was being triggered in me every time he came through the door, it doesn't matter. The fact was that I could feel it and that I decided this has to be a starting point for me. I have to um, get some boundaries so that this doesn't trigger me because it feels terrible. So that was like the first little thing that I realized. And with that negativity, trying to negate negativity in my life, I thought I'm gonna do every text and every message and every conversation is going to leave out the word not. So NOT, that I just did everything I could. I would type it all the time and I backspace and reword it so that that would not be part of my vocabulary. And it took a lot of time, but it was a really great practice. So that was like something I could do for myself. I could do this for myself. But then I really wanted to get into helping other people because who wants to be stuck in that? So after I was diagnosed, uh, I started go through the treatments, and I had no, just because of everything else that was going on, I just didn't have any capacity for learning about new ways, anything alternative, anything holistic. I just gave my body to, I feel like I give my body to science. That's terrible. I give my body to the medical community, to allopathic medicine, and said, you people know what you're doing. Um, so do it. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to work on my emotions, my mental health, and my spirituality. I'm going to go work on those things because they're within my grasp. I can do that. So that's how I went through that. And as I was sitting in the chemo chair, I thought, I know there are other ways that can be helpful to make this journey easier. So I'm going to figure out what those are and see what I can do about it. So I afterwards I finished all that treatment and went back and volunteered for about a year and a half, and with the cancer patients, in the chemo room, in the relaxation therapy group, in chemo teach. So I really got to be with the people and get to understand better what they needed and what felt good, and things that maybe I hadn't thought of. So I just thought, there's got to be a way to be able to make this journey easier for people, for women. And so I started on that journey, went back to school and got all the, started energy healing and therapeutic touch, NLP, like so many different things. And you know, Gus sometimes has different ideas of what your healing is supposed to look like. So I did all that and it was really great. I started a foundation for women who are newly diagnosed with breast cancer. And then I had the rupture. So all my reconstruction had to be undone because I had the capsule that is around the implant uh, ruptured, and then I was poisoned. So I had to have that all unconstructed, all taken out, and now there's nothing there. It's just you know, concave, and that's fine also. Um, I've had children, so you know, they've played their part, they've done their thing, and I'm sad that they're gone, but it's just it is as it is, and we're going to move forward. Um, but when that happened, it was just a matter of, again, there was no resources. There was nothing out there for me to get research or to ask questions, or I didn't know who to talk to because breast implant illness is a thing. And it was just kind of really coming into the mainstream when this happened to me. So there wasn't a lot of information, and everything that you know, are told, of course, at the hospital or the doctors is, you know, we don't know anything about that. So take this prescription and go home and maybe you'll be better, or maybe you won't. Time will tell. That's, you know, that's not good enough. Sometimes that's not good enough. You need more. So I just thought I'm just gonna put together whatever I can for women and give them some guidance in some way. At least there's something, they'll have something. So the Women's Wellness Network was born because, you know, it was a resource. The resources were needed, and people, a community was needed for women to just ask questions and find some answers, and you know, get on their healing path without feeling lost and alone and afraid. And you know, it's nice to be able to just go somewhere and, you know, start right away on your healing journey. These groups, you know, we do the interviews and people can see who the person is, who the, you know, the coach or the guide or the um, practitioner, what they are, who they help, what they bring, how they act, how they respond, you know, all the things. It really does help people connect with each other. And hopefully that's what's going to happen. There's going to be people being able to connect with one another and really find the healing that we need before anything really traumatic and disastrous happens, I think is the best idea.
Definitely. Oh, Tammy, that is just such a powerful story, because I imagine that there are women out there who have, you know, breast implants and are feeling like they're not feeling very well, or people who are going through similar struggles, like um, relationships, marriages that are not really serving them as well as they could, not being able to sort that out with your partner. You know, it takes two to want to make it work, and if one of you feels that there's nothing wrong and the other one feels that there is, it's a lot of struggle, and that really can impact your health. And my internet's unstable, it's saying, so hopefully you can still hear me. And
You're
and
still
so,
here.
yeah, and there's other things as well, isn't there, that we go through, the dynamics of life in general. You know, we may have a bullying boss, we may have a stressful job where we feel we're under pressure, we may have elderly parents that we're looking after that, you know, we're concerned about and needed to care for, and then we're juggling that as well as juggling our own home life and children growing up and going to school, and issues with children's friendships and things like that come in. And there's so many social situations we find ourselves in as women that we're juggling, and the stresses and the anxiety and the fears that pop up all impact our health. And what you've touched on there is that there was a gap that needed to be filled, because allopathic medicine and the whole system of health around the world is around symptom management rather than actually curing anything or healing anything full time, the full on thing. And so we're not encouraged to look any further. It's this or nothing else. You know, we can do this, we can't do anything else, but we're not allowed to look for other things,
Right.
because, you know, what I've found personally is that if there's no money in it for them, then they don't advocate it, recommend it, or they dismiss it. or they ridicule it. So you
Right.
found a gap where it was, this is happening to me. This is what I need. It's not there. So I'm going to create it. And that's just
Yes.
phenomenal that what you've done is that's what exactly what you've done. The Women's Wellness Network is just unbelievable. I'm just so pleased that you did that. But and so sorry you had to go through the process to get you to where you are now, because it's not an easy path to go through. But maybe if you hadn't gone through it, you wouldn't have the Women's Wellness Network now. You might, it might never have crossed your mind. So it's, there's always a, what is it, the silver lining in every cloud or something they say. So
Yes.
that's just a phenomenal thing. So Women's Wellness Network, what do you actually do in the Women's Wellness Network?
Excuse me. Well, let's see. The Women's Wellness Network itself is the resource center, but it does have a stage, a platform for women who are healers, practitioners, guides, teachers, authors, artists, any kind of thing where it relates to wellness. So let's just say, for example, because you are a singer, which I think is so cool, um, like yourself, you could come to the Women's Wellness Network as an artist and share the journey of your music, of your songs, of that kind of thing, the path that you've walked. Because artists, especially musicians, poets, have such depth of learning and understanding and teachings within the music that they bring. So that's kind of person that could come there. An author who's written a book that has to do with wellness, they could come and do a book club where they walk the members through their story and why they wrote that and what's important about it, so they can really, you know, put themselves into the members' minds, right into their living rooms, right into their lives. So really get their stories across in a different way. Or a practitioner, say you, or a coach, if you have say a wellness practice, say you're a breath work coach, and you can come and do classes into the Women's Wellness Network. So it's a paid membership group where we take care of the little details, we take care of the, event planning and the graphics and that kind of stuff. And you just come and show up and do your course or your workshop, webinar, whatever it might be, to help the other women grow. But then at the same time, you get to help yourself grow. You get to, curate new ideas, come up with different ways of presenting courses, all that kind of stuff. So it really provides a platform for women who want to be able to show their grow, as I like to say.
That's amazing. Tammy, I've really loved having you on because I didn't, I knew some of your story, but I didn't knew the full extent of your story. And it's just blown me away today. And what you've developed in the Women's Wellness Network is brilliant too, because I didn't even have any idea that you can go with professionals and business people and artists, musicians, you name it, can go in there and actually teach and educate people. So that's another aspect of the Women's Wellness Network that I hadn't even seen. I think I was so busy doing my own stuff and building my own network and my own people to help with chronic pain and illness that some of it just passes us by, doesn't it? There's just so much to hear and learn. So I have to apologize that I didn't have the full extent of what you're doing there, and it's absolutely more amazing than I thought it was before. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And can you tell people how they can get in touch with you? Can they get in touch with you just by going on Facebook and going into the Wellness Women's Network and inviting themselves in?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, they can come to the Women's Wellness Network and just ask to join, as long as you're not some kind of, you know, uh, I do like look at people generally to make sure, because there's all sorts of people that don't belong there. But then, of course, if you're a woman, we want you to come in. So the threshold is the barriers are very low,
Yeah.
but we want as many women to come in as possible, bring the things that they have to offer for themselves and for others. I think that's part of the thing, it's a
Yes.
good balance there. So the Women's Wellness Network, or TWWN, is the quick way to look it up on Facebook. And you could also direct message me, Tammy Scarlett. I'm there in Messenger. And there is a website, thewomenswellnessnetwork.com.
Fantastic. So we're going to put those in the video when we finish, and I'll tag you in that so that you can come in and comment if anybody comes in and wants to contact you or comment or ask you any questions. We'll do that as well. So final thoughts, Tammy, before we actually end this video, this interview. Final thoughts, words of wisdom for the women within the Gutsy Women Network who have chronic illness or any kind of IBS, gut issues, that kind of thing. What would you say?
I would say those things that you have, those are symptoms. Those are the result of something that's going on inside of you. So look into what that is. Connect with somebody, connect with Dee, connect with anybody who can give you some kind of guidance, because we don't need to suffer. We want to live, we want to be healthy, we want to thrive. So, we don't need to live with any of that stuff anymore. I think there's enough resources and enough people out there who have a really good understanding of how to move past it, move through it, and prevent it from happening again. So take yourself seriously. Take care of your health, because it is very valuable, very, very valuable.
So,
Thank you,
so
Dee.
true. Thank you so much, Tammy, for coming in. And the other thing that just come to mind when you were saying that was, when you're healthy, you've got 1,000 problems, but when you're ill, you've only got one. So you've just said that in such a powerful way. So thank you so much for your interview today. Thanks for your time. It's been an honor, a blessing, and a pleasure to have you here. And anybody that's watching this, please contact Tammy if anything that she said has resonated with you. If you can, empathize with the story, resonate with the story, have had a similar experience, I'm sure Tammy will be able to have a chat with you and help you and guide you in some way. So thank you so much for watching, and please comment, please keep the conversation going under this video. It would be so glad to have your thoughts. Thanks everyone, and we'll just end it there. Thank you. Thanks, Tammy, for being here.
Thanks, Dee.